Hello, everybody. So, I thought I'd just tell a bit of a story today about sort of how I got interested in sort of reading texts about spirituality, things like that. Like most people, it's always usually caused by something really bad that's happened in your life that sort of it forces you into trying to find another way. It's kind of like destiny, really. We get into the realms of the limits of our understanding about how the universe works, really. But it's not so often I share really personal stuff. As most people, well, I think probably everybody knows, I have another YouTube channel. I was a bit reluctant to share this story on there, but this was like a really dark time, and we all go through them. So I just thought I'd share it on this channel. The reason I was a bit reluctant to do it on the other one is because I was open to a lot of criticism. I mean, people would use it against me, but you know what? If they do, it's up to them. They can't hurt me or anything. But so yeah, I was in. I was in a relationship. It wasn't just a normal breakup. Basically, I was with someone a few years, and I was a lot younger when I met them. I was like in my 20s, quite naive compared to where I am now. But I'd like to think an alright guy. And I met this girl, and things were great at the beginning. Something that I just wasn't prepared for at all was that she had a very young daughter who was 4 when I got into the relationship, and she had a son as well, and the son was one of my best friend's son. There was no issue on that front. I did the honourable thing and spoke to my friend first. They'd been split up a long time. He was quite happy, to be honest, that there was a decent guy where his son was. But anyway, the little girl wasn't his. But when I got with this person, the father of the little girl wasn't interested. So I unwittingly took the sort of role. It just sort of happened. I can't describe the sort of love I felt for this child. I sort of fell into it. There was this beautiful little girl. She was so adorable and loving. And anybody who's a parent, when children are that age, 4 or 5, they're just magnificent. They have no ego. They just love. That's all they are. They are just a ball of love. It sounds really corny, that, but it's true. So I just, fell head over heels with this kid, and we had a bond, a really special bond. I've been around children before, and I've never experienced anything like this. I can't describe what it was like. When I used to look into her eyes, it was kind of like magic, and my heart would melt. And, we became it took quite a while. I'd say it probably took about a year, and then this super bond was created where we were kind of just inseparable, really. This very, very difficult to articulate. It's something that I never expected from someone who wasn't mine, wasn't biologically mine. But at the same time that was going on, me and my partner at the time, the little girl's mum, were having problems. There's no point in going into that too much because I'm not gonna one of them people who place blame, but I made a lot of mistakes in that relationship. She was insecure and quite controlling, things like that, and I let my ego get the better of me sometimes and let emotions run high and didn't deal with things as well as what I could have done. So, I was young, you make mistakes. So the relationship started we had our moments. It was sometimes pretty bad. I tried to end it a couple of times because I felt kind of trapped, really, as well as having the little girl and fathering her. I didn't have a life outside of that family unit, and that wasn't something I was used to, so I kind of felt trapped. I couldn't really go out with my friends and things like that, so it was a little claustrophobic, I felt. But anyway, I couldn't bring myself to end it on a couple of occasions. I was weak and naive. I couldn't stand to see her suffer, and the little girl. I couldn't. Looking back at it, this was a number of years ago, but looking back, I'd have never been able to end that relationship, ever. I'd have never been able to leave the little one, because she meant so much to me. And because her dad left her, her real dad left her when she was very, very young, she only had very brief memories of him, and they were negative. And then I came along, and one thing that I am sort of proud of, I never said a word wrong to her, I never did anything wrong to her the whole time I was with her. And I think I found it a natural, and people have always said this, I'm just naturally good with children, and it was a natural parental sort of instinct that I've got. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to sound, arrogant or anything, but I think that's, people have said that before, so I think that was true. So yeah, the kind of relationship went downhill. Then it went back up again. We were moving forward and making plans to, get married and things like that. There was a lot that went on within the time that we were together. She had a death in the family. One of my parents was ill. I had problems at work. Just, I suppose, general life problems, really. It created a lot of pressure. I was learning a new job, and it was very, very difficult, very stressful. So I had that going on, as well as the little girl was growing up and all that kind of thing. So there was a lot going on, and anybody that's in a family situation will know that. But obviously, as time went on, my relationship with the little one got stronger and stronger. Now, a few years into the relationship, my partner, the little girl's mum, was just decided, we went through really bad. She got a new job. She'd been in the job a couple of months, and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, we were having problems, and it started going downhill. It got bad to where it weren't, and she decided to, she wanted to end it. And the relationship ended, and then I found out that she was with someone from work, which absolutely destroyed me. I asked if I could continue to see the little girl, but she wouldn't let me. Looking at the time, I didn't really. Well, I suppose I did, but it wouldn't have worked. It's a shame. But realistically, she was 7, the little one, at the time we broke up. I was the only real dad that she ever knew. However, I wasn't hers biologically. I had no legal right whatsoever. So I didn't have a leg to stand on. There was nothing I could do. So I had to let them go. So I did, eventually. Without any major dramas, I realised that the only way that could help her, the little girl, was that I could leave it, that I left her alone. I realised it was the only thing that I could do, and she needed to move on. Having me stirring up problems wouldn't have helped, so I had to let her go. And that's when the dark time started for me. That was, looking back at it now, I mean, this is stirring up some emotions, because I've not really spoke about this in a while. But I had like a family, and then all of a sudden I had nothing. I don't have a lot of other close family, and I can't even begin. I had a stepson, I had a daughter, and a girlfriend, and then I had nothing. I was living on my own with no family around me, close family. Well, that's not true. I've not got a big family. I had people there, but it was horrendous. I mean, the loss of the child, I just can't. I don't know how I got through it, because I knew that she'd been absolutely heartbroken, but there was nothing I could do. Absolutely nothing. I wasn't allowed to see her. She'd moved on with someone else who clearly have been trying to take my role. I didn't have a legal right. I didn't have anything. There was nothing I could do whatsoever. So, as well as dealing with my own grief of the loss of my partner and my stepdaughter, I call her my daughter because, I took her on her first day of school. I just did everything a real father would do. So losing the child and losing my girlfriend and my stepson all in one go, and then having nothing. And, I wrote, it was only a few days before I found out she was seeing someone else. I sent her an email and said, I think this is where we went wrong. Please tell my daughter, I called her, please tell her I love her so much and I'll never forget her. And I didn't even get a reply. It really kind of broke me heart, really. So yeah, it was difficult it was difficult to deal with. So I had the loss of her, the little girl, to deal with, and the loss of my girlfriend, and I felt betrayed in the way that, it's probably too strong a word, I felt very harshly treated by her. The way that I found out was I'm glad I can laugh, really, but the way I found out was via Facebook, that she was seeing this other person, and to think that this other guy had already met my daughter when I'd not even had a chance to say goodbye was a bit too much for me to deal with. So it was difficult. I didn't have any time off work. I had a couple of days off, 3 or 4 days off here and there, but I carried on because I didn't want to sit at home. I carried on doing that. I drunk a lot. Really started to drink quite a bit at this point. That was difficult. But luckily, one thing I realised looking back, when I said I didn't have a lot of close family around, what I did have was some friends at that point that were there to support me and help me. And if they hadn't have been there, I wouldn't have survived. There's no way on earth. It's funny how the universe kind of puts things. These people that were there are no longer in my life anymore. I fell out with all of them. Pretty, not specifically bad blood. Nothing major happened. Just a couple of people that I decided our relationship wasn't positive for me. We had a couple of fallouts, but looking back, those people that were there to help me through it, I just think that when you're in that position, there's an old saying that God never gives you more than you can handle. I wouldn't like to say that to everybody who's been through terrible situations, but that certainly seemed to be the case, because if I'd have had to deal with all that on my own, well, I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't have survived. There's absolutely no way on earth. I can't believe I have now, really. I mean, it's interesting. The reason I kind of wanted to make this video is to just, I know people go through worse, of course. I'm not that naive to think I'm the most hardest done to person in the world, but, so I had all that going on, but I had people around me, and my friend would come round every day, and I just want to talk and get things off my chest, and I had to keep going over things. And it's bizarre what happens in that situation. You overanalyze everything to the nth degree. I spent years blaming myself over everything. My mum used to say, you're torturing yourself, and I couldn't help it. I just blamed myself so much for losing her, and I just went, you fucking idiot, what have you done? I don't really do that anymore. But the reason I sort of wanted to mention this story is, I remember one day, I was kind of on my own. It was a Sunday, and Sundays were hard because we always used to do things and take her to the zoo and stuff like that, and you know, she'd come round to my whatever. But Sundays were hard, and I had to spend most of them on my own. And one day, I remember I was driving, just feeling really like alone, to the degree that I can't. If there's anybody listening that's lost someone, you'll know how I'm feeling. But to sort of have, my friend said to me once, tell me in the comments if I'm over dramatising this, but some people didn't understand. I'd tell them what had actually happened to me, what had gone on, and about losing the little, and they say, well, you'll have your own one day. And I just remember thinking, I appreciate you trying to help, but what a ridiculous thing to say, because that's like saying if your child died in a car crash, you can have another one, so don't worry about it. So it was a difficult situation because very few people understood. Because she wasn't mine biologically, people couldn't get their heads around it. But I couldn't have loved anybody more. And the fact that I knew that she'd be suffering, and I knew she'd be confused about why I was gone, because I never got a chance to say goodbye, because I couldn't, because she wouldn't have understood. I couldn't have gone to her and said, I have to leave. She just wouldn't have understood. She wouldn't have been able to articulate in her mind why I couldn't see her anymore and why I wasn't allowed. So I couldn't say goodbye, and it was terrible to think that she would have thought that I abandoned her like a real dad did, when nothing could have been further from the truth. That was torturous. And then to think that, you know, someone you was there and he might not be honourable. Oh, it was horrendous. So anyway, I'm driving to a town centre on this day, feeling so alone. And I had a walk around this town centre just feeling like a ghost. It was only like a couple of months after it happened. And I went into a bookstore and I saw something just caught my eye. Like, it was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and it was just bright blue. And I saw it and I just knew I had to buy the book. I'm not saying it was like some kind of magical experience where it was fate, but I just knew that I had to buy that book, and I bought it. And quite disturbingly, it was kept on my shelf at home for probably about 4 or 5 weeks until I read it properly. I was doing some overtime at work one day, and it was very quiet, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just sat down, and I brought the book with me. And I remember reading it, and there was a shift when I read it, and it was the first part of the book when it said, "You are not your mind." And as soon as I read that, something clicked. Something went. I was like, wait, you're not. That's right. It made me realise that all the emotions that I was feeling and the pain wasn't me. That's not me. But when you identify with them, you believe that they are you. You believe that you are your pain, or you believe that you are your failures, when nothing can be further from the truth. It's all part of the human condition that we play around in. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. But it made me... It's like I've come to an understanding now that relationship had to end, because I wouldn't have learned and done the things I'd have done now. If I'd have carried on in that relationship, there'd have been no growth in consciousness like there has with me now. I believe that I have come a long way. Don't get me wrong, some days I lose it, not often, but sometimes I lose it a little bit, and I think, Jesus, you've not learned anything. But that's just my mind sort of telling me that I haven't. When I know that I have, there's things that I can do now. And things that I can see that I never would have been able to see. And it's been years of meditation and reading and travelling to new places and dealing with things from a different perspective. It's unbelievable how much wiser I am. And it took all that suffering to get to this point. And it's like, that's what life is about. You find growth in, strife and challenges and sometimes tragedy. That's what life's all about. The sort of Jesus on the cross. He went through extreme suffering, probably the most a human can go through. You're nailed to a cross and whatever, and you're stoned or whatever, and yet he accepted, his position. Said, forgive them, they know not what they do, as if to say, I accept the situation. And he ascended and then rose, and that's what it's all about. And of course, at the time, that's the furthest thing on your mind, isn't it? The pain that you feel and the loss is horrendous, and you question everything. You question God. You think, what have I done to deserve this? Why? Please tell me. Why do I have to suffer like this? You look around and you see people smiling and happy. It gets me now. I'll never truly get over it. You never get over the kind of loss that I've suffered, or the similar losses. You just don't. Every time, I see someone that looks like her, a little girl of that age, my heart breaks. I've learned to deal with it a lot better, and I'm grateful in a way for having gone through that, because if I didn't, I'd be stuck being a pretty, not shallow, but quite a naive person, and the lessons that I've learned are invaluable. The sort of experiences that I've had since then of travelling to different places, meeting new kinds of people, and rising above the petty things that I used to get involved in. And I'm changing all the time. It's like, even when I go out now and I socialise, it's not me judging people, but I don't get along with the same people because I'm not interested in talking about the things that they do, like small talk and he said and she said. It just doesn't appeal to me anymore. I just don't. There is a bit of, sometimes you struggle to fit in, but it's just the way it is. Drinking as well. I don't particularly enjoy drinking as much anymore. Very rarely have a drink. I don't eat meat. I never thought I would be saying those words. Good God. So it's just about, in your darkest moment, you think that all is lost and something happens, and as long as you sort of... What I've learned is, any situation, virtually, nearly any situation you can get out of and you can punch through and become better, but you've got to have that will to want to be better, and that comes from a decision, and anybody can make that decision, anybody, but you've got to say, you know what, I'm better than this, I can do this, and we've all got that ability to make that decision. And it's about wanting to find the truth and setting everything else aside and putting everything else that life and the world seems to want to have, seems to want you to have: a bigger car, a bigger house, plastic surgery, designer clothes, Botox, bloody, this, a mansion, and all that crap that you watch on TV with Kardashians. It's young girls are going, I want to have that, I want to have that crazy makeup and the hair, and it's like, oh God, get a grip. It's not about that. It's about your level of consciousness and seeking the truth. And truth will not be found in a Bentley. The truth will not be found in a makeup set. There is nothing wrong with those things. You play around in the world of form, but do not get sucked into it. You know, be an observer in a way. Not necessarily an observer, because that would say you're not taking part, but if you're playing the game and you know it's a game, it's not a problem. It's when you get lost in the game and you think it's real, that's the problem. Because that's when you become a tosser, basically. That's when you start creating suffering for yourself and others. If you want to have millions, it's brilliant. Ambition is brilliant if it comes from a deep place. If it comes from a place of fear where you need to be better, or you need more money, or you want to be better than everybody else, or you want to become massive, it will be destructive. It will cause suffering and destruction everywhere you go. But if it comes from a place of you want to be better and you want to do good, there's absolutely nothing in the world wrong with that. So, guys, just as my crazy phone starts going, I'm going to leave it there, and I'd really appreciate any feedback, anything at all. If you think that I'm making a meal of the story and maybe I was being a bit too emotional in the way that I am dealing with it or have dealt with it, any feedback would be appreciated. I've never sort of put that story out there in this kind of format before. It's open to the entire world, isn't it? So it's one of them things. But anybody that's listening, I really, really appreciate it so much. And I hope you've got something out of it yourselves. And I really thank you. And I will speak to you soon. And I hope, if I don't speak to you before, have a brilliant Christmas. And thank you.